welcome back to Garden Studio. I'm Tessa Pinner, a designer and gardener in upstate South Carolina, Zone 8A. Today's video is a little different. I thought I would take a week of nap times and do just a little bit of gardening every day just to see if I clocked it and I timed myself how much I could get done. My first task is to finally finish pruning some roses. Now I've done most of the bigger roses, but I have a couple shrub roses left. So here we go. Time to tackle them. Nap time does not mean there's not still a child who's not napping. There's one who's napping and there's one who is not. So that's always a toss-up as well with what gets done. Just take it a day at a time. If I get this one thing done today, I'll be happy. I'm already having a little bit of a change of heart about how I frame this little experiment, not speed gardening, because I think we have enough in our lives that is super fast-paced, how rushed and just frantic we all feel a lot of the time. And I don't think the garden should be a place that you take that kind of energy. So I'm actually sitting here feeling stressed and I put it on myself. So don't do that. If you do something like this, maybe a better way to frame it would be, I have this chunk of time. I am going to make the clock my arbiter versus, okay, I have a huge list that's way more than I could ever get done in this amount of time, and I'm going to try to squeeze as much as I can into a little finite moment because I do have a huge list. And I thought maybe I could get a few things done. What if I could get a few things done every day? I'm rethinking that. What if I can even get one thing done? That's still more than zero, and that's still more than, wow, I got nothing done until Saturday. And it's also a very healthful, rejuvenating hour for me as a busy mom and a person who could use the deep breaths and the sunshine. So I think that's actually a much better way to think about this little nap time gardening hour. Not speed gardening, a stress-free zone. It's a relaxed hour of whatever gets done, gets done. Okay, that's my soapbox. I was already feeling stressed 10 minutes in, like we cannot have this. This is not the point at all. Okay, next rows. If I weren't in my nap time gardening era, I would be sterilizing these. Or if I saw a reason to be worried, I'd be sterilizing these. As it is, I'm not, so I won't. My bottle is filled with my neem concentration, so lights out to aphids, hopefully. And I always try to look where the wind is blowing, and even though this is organic, I really don't want it spraying back at me, washing back at me. So if there is any wind, don't be downwind, be upwind. This is so exciting. All of my seedlings are, here we go. Do a better shot here in a minute. They are almost ready to go outside. We are about a week and a half away from the last predicted frost date in South Carolina. So I could take them out now and risk having to bring them back in, but probably about a week from now, I'll start taking them outside to get them acclimated so that when all threat of frost is past, I can just take them out and put them in the ground. I like to give my seedlings a little bit of fertilizer once they are up and growing. This is a seaweed extract, so it's very mild, very gentle. This is kind of how I cook, which is like, I know I need some of this. Let's dump it in, except for baking. That's different. That's chemistry. But for most other things, I just dump a little bit and look at that color, like wild. I'll fill it up the rest of the way with water from a tap I have down here and give everything water. All done here. I will check on these babies again in 2 or 3 days. It's Tuesday and nap time again. So I have an hour, and because it's raining right now, I decided to focus on some potting shed projects. I have a couple of sickly house plants. We got this plant the day we moved into our house 10 years ago, and we've always called it our love fern because it has just gone with us and grown over the course of being in this house and done so well and been so happy. And then all of a sudden it's really started looking sad, losing all its leaves, flopping over. So today I'm going to unpot it and see what's going on with the roots, because a lot of times if you don't see any pests, you don't have any specific disease to point to, then you might want to check out the roots to see if they're rotting, if there's something in there that could be causing it to be suffering and really what looks like it's dying. So it makes me really sad. Let's see what's going on with this. It's kind of messy. I've been dreading it, but today is the perfect day because again, it's raining. Got another succulent here. It's so fun, but it has little scaly bugs on it. I'm not a houseplant expert for sure. I just know that when there starts being bugs on your plants, you need to quarantine them, take them outside and treat them. So I have a couple of things that I'm going to try. Actually, that's the osmocote. I'm going to do some systemic houseplant and some insecticidal soap treatment. We'll see if that helps my little friend. It's kind of full up here, isn't it? You want to say hi? Hi! My nap time helper. After my triage attempt with the dying houseplant, that I am going to move on to a little bit of tying up and a little bit of foraging for an arrangement for the house. Those are my last 2 things before I call it wraps on this hour of nap time gardening. Since it's really starting to rain, I'm going to do a a single flower arrangement, all viburnum. Look at this. Ah! Makes such a difference for my level of joy to have flowers in the house. And really, all you need at any given time is one really great blooming shrub, perennial, something to cut. I'm looking forward to having these on my dining room table. I'm really specific in my edible kitchen garden that everything that I put on the garden be organic. And that's my preference for the entire property. However, I make an exception with my evergreen privacy. You can see this is just a bag of 10-10-10. It's your standard 10-10-10 fertilizer. And I put a scoop of this on all of the evergreens. Sometimes you just have to use what you have on hand. In this case, it is a toy frying pan for me. This is going to be my fertilizer scoop. I will wash it before I let my children touch it. Don't you worry. I have a whole line of viburnum here that I will do with about a cup each. And then I'll dump the elements in my wheelbarrow from yesterday. Didn't have time to do that, so I'll finish my cleanup today from yesterday so it just doesn't sit here and feel messy. I like to get the fertilizer down very close to the base of the plant, not touching the trunk. Here I'm underplanted with vinca, so it's kind of impossible not to touch anything. If this was just in a field of mulch, it would be pretty easy to scatter it around. But in this case, I don't care if it touches the vinca and burns it a little bit because it will come right back. But my main goal is to get it within about 24 inches around the trunk of these viburnum. My plastic child frying pan is doing great. Usually I like to compost most plant material. That was the trimmings from yesterday's houseplant that I'm not sure if there's something going on with. Noxious weeds or anything I just don't want in my own compost, I put out by the road. But generally, I try to compost most things. That's just a caveat. That one over the fence. And it was rose branches, which until they're totally broken down can stay really sharp with the thorns. So again, something I might put by the road. I can see that the foliage of these anise is a little yellowy. I'm interested to see whether this dose of nitrogen will green them right up or if I may need to add some iron. That plant tends to go a little bit yellowy, but doesn't look super happy right now, so we'll see if this helps. The line of evergreens behind me are ones I have always fertilized, well, since planting for the last couple of years. I'm concerned that because they're in the chicken run now, as of a month or two ago, that if I put fertilizer in there, the chickens will eat it. Now, I don't know, maybe chickens aren't that dumb, but they're pretty dumb. And I definitely don't want them eating synthetic fertilizer and then me eating those eggs. So I think I'm just going to trust the process that they are going to fertilize these evergreens behind me, and I'm going to do a couple more at the front of this little field, and then I'll be done. All right, that's a wrap for Wednesday's nap time gardening. Got one thing done, which was one thing more than if I hadn't used this little bit of time. It's Thursday, and my plan today is to dig up a couple of plants from one spot and to replant them in another. So once I start this process, I really need to finish, but I think it's something that I can reasonably do in just a few minutes. I'm planning to put some hydrangeas in this bed and also plant up the window box. That'll be a future nap time gardening episode. But for now, the Nepeta that I have right here, the catmint, is going to go back to the cutting garden. It's right where I need to plant the hydrangeas. It doesn't really get appreciated up here. It's more of a view at close range kind of plant. I just needed somewhere to put it last season. The plants were gifted to me, and so this was my put in place. And now they're going to find a more permanent home. Look at this beauty. This is going to be amazing in my cutting garden. I need something more structural right here, and I knew that when I put these here. Again, it was almost like a little nursery, or in the nursery trade we call it healing in, where you put something in the ground just to keep it growing and happy, but you know that it's not its permanent spot. That's okay. You nurse it along, you heal it in, and then when it's time to dig it up, you move it where you want it. I'm ready to go take these beauties to the back, get them in a new home. The bed at my feet here is where I plan to plant these Nepeta. There is some good material in here, some keepers, but there's also a lot of weeds. And what happened was last season when we had the chickens free ranging, they picked this bed apart. Something about it, it was just right on the edge, and they gravitated here and made dust bowls, took dust paths in here, and killed a lot of the plant material that I had in this one bed. So I am doing replacement. I'm doing replacement therapy and adding some good things back in. So these Nepeta will instantly fill the space back out and make it look good as new, or better. Looking for the most desolate spots where we could really use a fill-in. And I think no, we'll do them together. That is going to be amazing. This dirt, I'm going to lift it up so you can see, was bright red when we started gardening in this spot a couple of years ago. It had never been worked. It was just straight up clay, and now you can still see a little bit of that red still in there, but it's not all red anymore. There's a lot of good organic material that has been added in. We've mulched and planted and planted and mulched. And so now it's really easy to dig, and the color is very different than it was when we started. I'm planting it right next to the edge so that its foliage will do this nice spillage effect, kind of hide the curb a little bit. Digging a hole for a perennial is not as high stakes as digging one for a tree, but I still like to try to make sure the edges of my hole are not perfectly smooth. I give them a little bit of a chop to rough them up, just to give the roots a little bit better chance at escaping into the surrounding soil. Like a hairdo at this point. Little disheveled. I'll prune off some of last year's growth, anything that got damaged. Depending on the plant, sometimes I will just plop them, one here, one there, one here. But these look so good in a drift that I wanted to keep them together. All right, it's definitely raining, so I'm considering this a success and a wrap on nap time gardening for Thursday. It's Friday and I used today's nap time hour to video edit instead of work outside, and I really missed it. The last 4 days have been so nice. Instead of holding myself up inside the house, I purposefully made the effort to come outside and get a little bit done. And I cannot tell you, it was great for me as well as my garden. So I hope you feel inspired to use your little snatches of time, and you have a wonderful week.